to another hump week before holidays edition of the Ad Podcast. We've got a super fun guest for you guys today. Allie Cox is the founder and CEO of Noble West, where she works on building culturally relevant, performance-driven brand ideas. With a background that blends strategy, creativity, and execution, Allie focuses on helping brands connect authentically with audiences while delivering measurable impact. She's known for her sharp perspective, collaborative style, and ability to turn insights into work that travels. Allie, thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks, Dylan. A lot to live up for there.
Let's go. Well, always love to start with a little bit of an origin story. So tell me about where you grew up, where'd you go to school, what got you excited about the industry, and how did you get into the industry?
For sure. Well, again, thanks for having me on. Everything you mentioned is absolutely correct, except for I do want to kind of caveat that all of the work that we do is based in the food and agriculture business.
Oh, that's awesome.
Food and sustainability is something that I care really, really deeply about. And I'm a fifth generation farmer. So
Wow.
I grew up on a farm and definitely understand really the kind of the ins and outs of the food system. I'm also very good at ordering food in restaurants.
That's a good talent.
I mean, right? That's part of it. But I am originally from Central California, where most of the almonds are grown and a lot of our food, especially fresh produce, is grown for the United States. And from that background, went to the University of San Diego.
Nice.
Then I was an athlete. I was an Olympic rower. So
wow, that's cool.
But then after that, I moved to New York. And so I spent the better part of 12 years working in communications at Ketchum, PR, and also IMG, and then doing sports and entertainment marketing. And it was when I turned about 35, where I was like, I got to start really working on an industry I deeply care about. And that industry is definitely the agriculture and food industry. I just saw a huge opportunity between like what was happening with brands and what was happening sort of in culturally relevant, sort of like the food sort of industry, and also just as a consumer and insights. And then really just me knowing with my history, my background, knowing exactly where the food comes from and kind of the unsexy part of it. And I was like, this is crazy. Like, I know some farmers are struggling and people want great food, and there's just such a disconnect. And that was really when I decided to kind of really dovetail straight into food. And now it's really become a sustainability shop also, which has been so I think that's probably been one of the most beautiful surprises of my career out of the last 5 or 6 years. So feel really excited and blessed and really just, and most of the people that work with me now at Noble West, they are a lot of them, we always say we're like entertainment refugees, right? Like we definitely we all did our time in entertainment in New York or LA at some point, and then realized I think COVID, there was just a lot of folks who were like, oh, how I got to work on something I care about. Is this it? I don't know, one woman that worked with us for a long time, she's like, I just can never go back to selling tickets to anything. I can't, now that I know, how, much we're deeply impacting people that really matter and providing nutritional access. She's like, I can't go back to doing something I don't care about. And that is definitely probably one of the more beautiful twists and turns truly of my 25-year career.
I love it. I remember why I fast-tracked your interview now, because I was really excited about it. So thank you for
Dylan. We're going to talk about some different. We're going to talk about some different stuff, dude.
I love it.
Or we could talk about the good old stuff too.
I like this show to be, 1/3 your career, 1/3 you're doing now, and then 1/3, talking about the industry at large. So I think we're gonna have a really fun conversation. But
sure.
So talking about growing up in Central California,
Mm-hmm.
I'm down in San Diego.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in the Central Coast as well, in Santa Barbara, if you can count Santa Barbara.
Yeah, no, we're not talking about Dylan, you and I both know that we are not talking about the same place at all.
Well, hey, Ojai counts, right? Excuse me, but I have an RV. I spend a lot of time driving through California in the spring and fall for camping trips and going to see the parks. And,
Yeah.
I've driven through Gilroy. I've driven through
Yeah.
St. Elinas. My dad spent some time in Cool and had a summer house there.
Okay.
And, we spent time in the Russian River Valley going to wineries and stuff like that. So, you know,
Yeah.
as you mentioned, California is a massive contributor to the agricultural food supply of not only the US, but even internationally and globally. And one of the things that I've noticed that I would really love to get your take on is this explosion of what I would call like FTC businesses. So you've heard about direct to consumer, but there's this like farm to consumer movement that you're seeing happening, which I find to be really exciting because traditionally you've got brands that manufacture things, or excuse me, let's say you've got farmers that create the raw goods and then they sell them to some type of a distributor that then gets it to supermarkets. But then you've got like the Palm Company, which is an amazing example, right? Who, they've gone direct to consumer with their oranges and they've branded cuties. And yeah, they sell a lot of them through the grocery store, but they actually took an agricultural product and made a brand out of it. They also were big in branding pomegranates as a antioxidant and as like a health food supplement. And they got persecuted by the government and the FTC mercilessly because of them making claims or whatever about the health benefits of drinking pomegranate juice. And they have wonderful pistachios, which has had a Super Bowl commercial. So I feel like Palm was an early example, but then now, whether it's, yeah, please, let's go. Yeah. I'd love to get your take on
I'm
that.
like biting my tongue, but I'm like, Dylan, this is like, you're talking about like an eighth of it.
Perfect. Let's
Here
go.
is why, Linda Resnick is frankly a genius. And she also has the financial backing to take big risks, right? So, and they have swung and missed on things too. So none of us even talk about. The only reason I know about it is because I know a lot of the farmers. So here is why, especially with Wonderful, Wonderful is vertically integrated in like a case study way. More so like vertically integrated, that's something like you'll see like a little bit, you'll see that marketed a little bit where it's sort of like, sure, that's grower, packer, shipper, brand, consumer marketing. And that's the bread and butter of Noble West. Like that is right there. That's like, I don't think anybody's better at it than us, frankly. But the thing about Wonderful, they are yes and. Okay. They own the irrigation districts where the bulk of their like pistachios are grown. They're building the school districts and the housing where their employees work. Like and they are fighting so many lawsuits with the state of California on all of that because frankly, they are disrupting the entire system.
Which is amazing.
There's pros and cons. Right?
Yeah, right.
Monopolies aren't always great, right? But at the other side, there's like scholarship and there's clean drinking water. I mean, so there's pros and cons. The other part of it is how they work with their growers. So they don't grow all their own food. In fact, I don't think they grow much of it at all.
Interesting.
They have contract farmers. So those contract farmers, and I have worked with a lot of the service providers who work with them. So for example, there are some significant renewable energy goals that Wonderful Pistachio has put claims on. They're requiring and mandating their farmers to have solar on their properties to like prove out so that they can have this renewable energy hit these goals like in a vertically integrated way. So that is like part of the story. That to me is a really important part of the story. And as Wonderful's trying to push their price and they're looking to specialize, that is where like I think as the hero food ingredient, the opportunity to tell part of the depth of that story. Sure, I love the Super Bowl commercials and I'm here for it. And I love that they have made like a hero food ingredient, like celebrity culture. Like I I'm here for the whole part, all of it. But I also think that that's just part of it. I mean, they own they own their own nurseries. So like, you don't just plant a tree, you like have little baby trees that are grown in nurseries that are spliced, and then they are germinated, and there's hybrid, and they're putting 3 different types of tree together. Like an almond tree is half peach, like half peach rootstock. So they're doing all that and the other part of it. But again, if you've got super deep pockets and a really ambitious, like this, it was ripe for disruption. And I don't know why it hasn't happened in more farming stories, frankly.
Yeah. And then when you talk about farming, do you also touch ranching and like the livestock side of things, or do you only
Yeah.
deal with like
Yeah.
the vegetables?
Yeah. I mean, my family has beef cattle. We have
Got it.
yeah, I worked on a really cool Wagyu project. We're hopefully going to be working with a very, 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 very large beef company soon. So yeah, there's that's definitely part of it. The majority of our work is definitely in like row crops and trees and nuts and vines and produce and rice and cherries. I mean, like really, I mean, we've worked across 20 different commodity types at this point.
Wow.
And then
Okay.
also a lot of the service providers that are necessary. Potatoes, we have a humongous potato client. So that way we have worked across with a lot of the folks that are doing the work, like to support those ag industries and helping them tell that story all the way up. And really my biggest concern is green hushing over green washing, if I'm being honest, when it comes to food. Farmers are reticent to tell, like, this is so cliche, to tell their story, but the truth is they are, because they don't want to highlight, they don't want to invite trouble, right? And so they meet me and they're like, oh, Allie, you're a farmer, you and your husband are farmers, your family still farms, you get us, I get you, you understand all of the incredible risks and financial risks that come with this industry. How can we make more money? How can we differentiate from our neighbors? And that is something that we really specialize in. So that's sort of the door. And so I kind of have a little bit of an advantage when it comes to our competitors in that way.
Yeah, because you relate to them because you actually have sat in their shoes and you've done the things that they do and they trust you. It's an industry where I imagine there must be a tremendous amount of trust.
Oh yeah, relationship. Yeah.
So
and the thing is, they're not afraid. Like in this industry, in food, people are not afraid to make risks. They just they have to understand the kind of like the people they're taking the risk with. Are they in it with me? Can I trust them?
Yeah. So, I don't know if this is a good thing or not, but there have been this kind of like explosion of, let's call it Airbnb style businesses, dual-sided marketplaces that have tried to help farmers monetize their properties and their land.
Agritourism.
Agritourism. So like Harvest Host comes to mind.
Mm-hmm.
We did some work at one point with Land Trust, which is the world's largest, kind of like marketplace for recreational hunting and sportsmen's activities. Their primary clients are farmers and ranchers and landowners. What do you think about that? Do you think that's a sign of like how squeezed farmers are, that they have to resort to these, new monetization streams, or are these marketing opportunities to allow consumers to come and spend time on the farm and really build a relationship with their producers and understand where their food comes from? Because, my experience has been, if I have stayed at a property like an alpaca farm or done a Harvest Host at a winery or a corn farm, and I remember that brand, I then shop with that brand like for life because I had an experience with them. So what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts about that?
I think agritourism is cool. It's also about like 0.0001% of the conversation when it comes to agriculture. So I think it's awesome. I think agritourism in Europe is incredible, which is a much smaller food system. So I mean, agritourism really, I think, was born in Italy. Like it's really cool. And in some ways they're like actually doing it so that there are like more like hands to help, like helping on the ranch. I've worked on an agritourism project and there's definitely, I mean, I think we also need to remember, like, we're talking like I love your like the FTC acronyms. I think that's great. That to me is not food at scale.
Interesting.
That is a really niche-y, cool educational component, which I think is important, and I absolutely think there's a place for it. That in order to make that work, they likely are independently wealthy and do not need any of that income to support any of their farm loans or anything else. Same with agritourism, unless if they're doing it in a way that's more educational. I think that for some smaller farmers, like and when I say smaller, I'm talking like there's absolutely no way in the state of California that a family of more than 10 people could survive on less than 1,000 acres.
Wow, 1,000 acres is kind of
I
the
mean, like,
minimum.
I'm just like, and of course, different crops have different value. So 1,000 acres of corn versus 1,000 acres of strawberries is a different, obviously, that's a different price point. But that's where if there is a beautiful piece of property and they have farmhouses and they have, hookups for RVs and all the things, like, sure, why not? That is a great additional source of revenue. But then your day-to-day really changes, right? It's not really about farming. It's more about
You're a tourism operator, you're a
you're a
hospitality
tourism operator, which I
marketer.
think is cool. Honestly, I think it's cool. I don't think there's anything wrong with it, but it's definitely not going to feed the masses, especially when we have tariffs and we have international pressures and all the rest of it.
Yeah, no, that's a great point.
I'm
So
sorry, I'm romanticizing. I think I don't.
I know.
Here's the thing, Dylan. I'm not romanticizing it. I'm like, how are these farmers going to survive so that we actually do not live in a completely monopolized environment and are completely dependent on international food that's grown in ways that is not even permitted, regulated. We have no idea where their water comes from. We have no idea what kind of chemicals they're putting on their food. And they have to be sitting in ethylene in a container to get here. Like, again, that's why it's sort of like, if we do not support our clients and their efforts to get a return on investment for the incredible farming work that, like, their incredible farming operations, we are all screwed. Like, that's why I say, like, this is a mission-based business, because we definitely are taking that kind of approach.
I love that. So let's talk a little bit about the farm to consumer, there's Merriweather Farms, there's Butcher's Box, there's like all these independent ranchers that are basically saying, hey, cut out the middleman, get the fresh, best grass-fed beef, fish, there's Choice Seafoods, there's a bunch of operators that are going direct to consumer. Yeah, they're basically direct to consumer through their own Shopify sites. But you're saying that's not a meaningful revenue stream to these folks to offset what they do, like on a B2B level.
I think that if they do it right, it can be very meaningful. I mean, some of the businesses we just mentioned are doing 300 million in sales.
Wow.
It's super meaningful. But you have to be able to afford well, number one, it takes vision. Okay. So Dylan, I think we probably just talked about 1% of the market, like not even. Okay. But that takes a lot of vision and a lot of guts to be able to say, like, okay, we're going to do this differently. We're not going to be like 99% of the farmers and raise the beef and send it, and just, our job is just to get it to, I hate to say it, fatten them up, get them off, get them out the gate, get them on the truck, and get them to where they need to go. That is a normal farming job. I'm going to raise them. I'm going to sell this head. I'm going to get this. I've confirmed this price per pound. Off it goes. It's going to the butcher. Somebody else owns it. They're taking title to that product. They're then going to broker it out. And that is that. That is how it normally works. So the farmer really has if you think about it, this is the whole crux of why this whole food system's so screwed, is because the farmer and the consumer do not have the same goals. The farmer is trying to get or the rancher here in this case is trying to get the most amount of price per pound. That does not mean he or she ethically cares how that happens. It's the problem. And a consumer is saying, I want to have meat that's like grown with integrity, raised with integrity and all those things. And that's why if you can afford it, you will be going to Snake River Farms and having it arrive in a box, or Butcher Box, or I mean, those are incredible companies that have completely turned the model upside down. Like they're incredible for a reason. They have taken incredible risk. And I mean, you know this, you're in the industry, marketing to consumers is fickle.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that website stalls out in the purchasing page in the cart for like half a second, you're out. You're like, oh no, this doesn't feel safe. I mean, that's just the way it goes. And how many times do we have to reach them to make a sale? And I mean, it's really complicated. And that's where most farmers just don't want to do that.
Yeah, and I find like I've waxed and waned, to do direct order meat, and so produce we get a local box for $30 dropped off on our step, and it's
Yeah.
seasonal, and that's great.
Yeah.
But and then we shop, in the stores for like filling in things that we don't get in that box each week. But on the protein side, when I'm making great money and my bank account's nice and fat, yeah, I'll do direct to consumer beef. But when when things are leaner, I'm going to Costco, So I think price has a huge impact on it, right?
Exactly.
Would you guys consider yourselves more of a B2B shop, or are you a B2B2C shop? Like, where are you building? Are you building these brands to advocate to the like at the end of the day, like, who are you trying to influence with your marketing? Are you influencing the wholesaler relationship in the ecosystem, or are you influencing the consumer, or both?
Yes, and to all of that.
Okay, got it.
So I mean, you have to remember with a lot of our clients, we are doing B2C, B2B, and B2G, business to grower. So that is very much so how we're operating. A lot of our clients are saying, listen, we would love to keep more in our pocket. Can you help us build our own brand? Can you help us reach consumers? Well, to that end, because most of them are not going direct to consumers. In some minor way, they might be. I mean, I did just learn that people from all over the country are buying 5 artichokes at a time from our artichoke client through the mail because it's the best artichoke, and they can't get a great artichoke in their store. Now, that's a super user, right? That is not at all the norm. But I'm here for it. I would do it. That's how I would love to spend discretionary income. But most of our clients, we have to do all of those to help them be successful, because that is what their business and community, that's what their business calls for. So for our business to consumer clients, which is for our brand marketing, we're doing that. I mean, that's about half of our work. And we absolutely love it, because that's when we get to be super creative and really build campaigns that are consumer campaigns in an industry that doesn't typically take that approach. So it's really fun. It's category defining, and I absolutely obsessively love it. But in order to do that, oftentimes we're going through the retailers, because we need to understand what their apps are doing, how they're marketing on Instacart, what their produce, what their category managers feel comfortable for. Are they using mostly private label? Do they allow branded produce in their stores? So understanding that is super critical, and helping and building comm strategies around that to support those category managers in retail grocery stores is critical. I mean, I've had new business meetings with our clients. I've sat with our clients and talked to the 25 largest grocery stores in the country over the last month to help them kind of move and understand our marketing strategy for different fresh produce products. And then, of course, there's B2B. So that's where the retail toolkits and helping to actually tell that authentic farm story is really critical. That's what brokers want to hear. That's what international buyers want to see. So, and then business to grower, because most all large agriculture companies, they're not supplying, they don't have enough throughput on their own property. So they have contracts with growers. Most of our clients have contracts with over 100 growers. So
Wow.
they have to go and, so that's when they're sort of okay, and this is how I got started in this whole thing, because we are a farmer. If they have to be able to articulate why they're a packer, why they should go with them, because most growers have quite a bit of choice, unless you're maybe in the Midwest and you're using row crops, and there's a miller only every 500 miles because it's so big. But our rice clients, those growers have they have options. There's 12 other packers within 100 miles. So they really need to be able to sort of differentiate themselves. And that's something I think we're really great at. So, like in the state of California, I think there's 93 almond packing houses. We've worked with about 20 of them. Some of them are literally like 10 miles down the road from each other, or 5. And so, how do you really differentiate them so that not their buyers understand why they're different, but also their contract growers? So, again, this is really it's gotten a little nichey, and I'm so here for it. And I just think that with Noble West, we're going to get more and more narrow, because honestly, it's so freaking satisfying to see like really great change that I can't imagine being a generalist ever again in my career.
I love it. Well, they say 2 clients is a conflict, 3 is a specialty, right?
There you go.
And I love that you're touching all these other areas, like you just talked about. I mean, really, you're doing shopper marketing. You're talking about retail media networks. You're talking about B2B. You're talking about direct to consumer, but all within this lane of like helping farmers, get their food from point A to point B. And you're also talking about a big component, which is the crisis of like making sure that farming in America stays in America, and that these farmers can make a living, and that we don't become dependent on food sources that are outside of the country. So how much of your work is advocacy work? How much is, designing campaigns and comms to talk to either Sacramento or Washington, D.C. or other important legislative bodies?
That's a great question. And I've never been asked that. So thank you for asking.
Of course.
Yeah. I love that I hear kids in the background that are not mine.
Sorry about that.
Oh no, I'm here for it. Anything can happen as long as they're not mine. It's wonderful. I would say that all of our clients spend time in DC and in Sacramento and in Austin and in Boise. So they all spend a lot of time advocating. They're also, most of them are part of associations and committees so they're paying an assessment based on whatever is harvested that goes towards the marketing order, which is through the CDFA and the USDA. So we're very familiar with that. I have never personally done any advocacy work, like myself speaking, but my goodness, I arm all of our clients with content all the time and speaking points and messaging points, because oftentimes, since most of them are category leaders, I shouldn't say that. I have been on a few podcasts where I've talked about it in different industries, but most of them are category leaders. A lot of them have leadership roles within their associations so that they can try to kind of secure and it's not funding. Like they're not looking for handouts in most cases, although the Secretary of Agriculture is very robust right now in working through that. But I think really it's sort of arming them with a story that they understand how to tell. Because I think a lot of times there's just assumptions, because our farmers are working in very small communities and everybody knows everything about how it all happens. So for them to sort of get their point of view organized in a way that is not emotional, but is more business oriented, is something that we really work on. Because the truth is, Dylan, like, here's the thing, like at Noble West, like our managing director, Sarah, said this a couple years ago, and she's so spot on. She's like, just like the world doesn't need another flannel in a flannel in a field, like no more flannel in a field commercials. Like I do not want to see any more, like the Folgers commercials have done such a disservice, like to farming. Like I do not need, nor does anybody else need to see any more commercials from food brands where they're marketing and kind of glorifying the farming, like getting up early with your dog kind of situation. Like that does such a disservice to the industry, because it's like, why should a consumer resonate with that? It's completely unattainable. There's only like 2% of people in the United States now are farmers. Like, why are you trying to glorify an industry that doesn't matter? And why should a consumer be willing to pay more for the food just because the guy got up early to work? I'm sorry. Lots of people get up early to do their job here. So like, let's not try to like glorify that. Let's actually talk about where the freaking food comes from and why they should care about it.
Yeah, I love that. And what's really interesting is that farming is becoming more high tech than I think most people realize.
Oh my gosh.
I recently on YouTube saw a crowdfunding campaign for some kind of a robot that helps farmers, and I don't know why I got it targeted, but are you
Mm.
guys are you guys working with more?
You should take that as a
Uh,
compliment, Dylan.
I know, right?
Yeah,
I
that's
know.
awesome.
Well,
We do a lot of work in ag technology, and we have for years.
got it.
So ag tech is definitely, like what I kind of mentioned, we support a lot of the service businesses that are reaching growers. That is one of them. Ag tech is humongous. We love it. We've worked in crop management software. We've worked in robots in manufacture, a sustainability company. We've worked with a publicly traded manufacturing business that is incredibly, that helps, it's not my words, but sustainable because it like peels less of the potato, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally.
And they do that, and we've worked with that company. It's called Tomra. They're incredible, and they work across about like 40 different kind of crops. But yeah, robots, weeders, organic baby carrots are the earliest adopter of robots in a field. So if you're eating an organic baby carrot that is grown in Bakersfield or the Central Valley, you absolutely should feel confident and it's worth the money. If that's something that aligns with your personal values, if organic food is something you care about, like there's definitely a lot of robotics that are happening, but then also just software to kind of water conservation is humongous, and that's where technologies really come into play. But I mean, the thing, and I go back to this though, Dylan, is like even on our own farm, our operating costs are up 40% than they were 5 years ago.
Wow.
And a
That's
lot of
crazy.
that and a lot of that has to do with ag technology.
So
And
the technology is
water
making
prices and labor prices and all the rest of it. So if you're going to buy the machine to replace labor because labor is so expensive, so it's definitely it goes back to me and marketing. Like if we don't actually articulate that value, that part of the value chain, then how can we expect a consumer to care?
Yeah, that's really interesting.
You know what I mean?
So
Because now you're going to be like, oh, I see an organic baby carrot in the grocery store. You're going to be like, you know what? I think that might be worth it.
yeah, I think definitely it's I think that story like you talked about of like, either buy American or American is going away. I think that would resonate with a good percentage of the country right now for sure. On that note, like how have you guys navigated the challenges around the deportation narrative? Obviously we've seen these like ICE raids in places like Ventura. For better or for worse, we know a lot of illegal aliens are employed by the agricultural industry. How have you guys navigated that moment in the political landscape?
Yeah. I think probably one of the more surprising things to most farmers is that right now their biggest challenge isn't water. I think that's just one of the things where like, especially in our area where there's, a lot of drought risk, it's like, I just cannot, they're just surprised that like labor is their biggest challenge because typically that's not the case. A lot of our clients use different sort of visas, my family farm included, where it's really about staying on top of it and being really organized. And I think that's where, but in order to be super organized and being utilizing all of the laws properly, it takes really savvy business skills.
Mm,
That is the part of it. So, and really savvy people who run businesses, I mean, I will tell you, like, it's expensive, as you know, as anybody here who's ever employed anybody knows. So again, it goes back to, are people willing to pay for the price that it costs to grow food with socially responsible practices, sustainability practices, and and just with integrity?
yeah, no, that makes sense. How do you navigate challenging brands like Monsanto comes to mind? Pre-Merck merger, they kind of became like this, you know, brand that people love to attack, whether it was because of branded content documentaries that were
Mhm.
made about them, etc. How would you approach working with a client like Monsanto? Would you work with a client like Monsanto? Somebody in the ag space that has had a challenging kind of corporate comms crisis, for a lack of a more PC way to put it.
Yeah. Okay, you're putting me on the spot, Dylan. I'm here for it. Would we work with Monsanto? At this point, probably not, just because
Yeah.
we don't really, we get to work with brands we want to work with
Yeah.
clients we want to work with. That's definitely, I mean, I'm not going to point fingers. That's not the point of this. But I think that it's sort of like, that's not really compelling work for us.
Mm,
I mean, my personal opinion aside about kind of the practices of that they're running, I just don't think that's compelling because that doesn't actually serve our mission. Our mission here is to connect consumers to their food sources and to help farmers get a better return on investment so that they can grow better and fill this humongous crevice of a problem that I mentioned where farmers are compensated on yield that does not align with consumer interest. There's a whole mess in the middle, mostly because of brokers. If you really want to know, we haven't talked about that. Is like the dirtiest side of this business. So
brokers seem to be the problem in a lot of industries these days, including health
right, everybody
insurance
wants their
and
cut,
others.
Dylan. But
Yep.
that is where and like the reason I understand, I mean, my great grandfather was a broker for when he first started until my great grandma wouldn't let him be that anymore. But like that's where
Like
there's
being a tax collector in Old Jerusalem or something
oh
like that,
God.
right?
Oh my goodness, this is going to work. But what I'll say is like as soon as it's only about the volume, as soon as it is, and it's not about the quality of the food anymore, that's what soon as and that's just where we are now. And when I was a kid, it wasn't like that. All the brokers came to the melon shed every day, and I knew them all. And they were actually looking at the quality of whatever the crop was at the time and saying like, and figuring out where to send it based on how long the perishable items could last. And that is something that's really changed.
Yeah, that's interesting. So, where are you guys with the trend of LinkedIn influencers? Because, I mentioned Land Trust. We did some work with them.
Mhm.
I did some, early scanning of the LinkedIn kind of creator ecosystem within the agricultural space. And there were some people who had built some sizable followings in and around agriculture. We're talking about 150,000 plus followers on
Mhm.
LinkedIn.
Mhm.
Are you guys thinking about LinkedIn creators as a channel? Have you
Mhm.
teamed up with them? Have you used them? What are your thoughts in
Mhm.
general on LinkedIn influencers?
Yeah, I love that you're asking this. Um, we I think it's part of integrated comms that we're like looking for in all of our comm strategies. In most cases, I don't think it's going to move the needle for a lot of our clients. Maybe if for like our B2B clients potentially, but I just for obviously the consumer work we're doing, it doesn't make sense. But I also think that we're working with specialists with like very, very, very niche specialists. So like the category manager who buys, value add. So value add meaning like whatever, sold in a branded experience in a bag, basically. Like that is like that guy or there's a few women I've met like two of them that those two women and all those guys they that wouldn't matter to them. They
Got
already
it.
know. They know what they know, right? They actually are the specialists. I think that there's just a risk of being phony, and I really frankly just don't want LinkedIn to go there, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
Like I kind of like LinkedIn more like 5 years ago when it was like really, really best in class experts had incredible followings because, and this is like before the algorithm was sticky, right? Like it's like people followed them and shared their work because they frankly were like so interested. Now, if I want to share something out, I have to spend so much time going and saying like, well, what else have they posted about? Because I don't want to like go and like endorse somebody that like 5 years ago said some racist comment for God's sakes. So I
Mm,
don't know. Like I think that's where I'm on the fence about it, if I'm being honest. But again, I don't know if we're quite the norm because we are working in LinkedIn particularly. Like really, I just need buyers. I need produce buyers to understand like what our produce clients are doing and our potato clients and all the rest.
I love it. So let's talk a little bit about new business. My guess is you're not going to CES, Impossible, and Cannes. What are the important places for you to show up as a agency owner?
I have been to CES. I would love not to go back. Um, I spend a lot of time at our industry trade shows. So I
Yeah.
go to the produce shows, I go to the rice conferences, I go to the almond conference. We go to a lot of food shows, fancy food. We go Expo West. We always have,
Expo is a good one. That's a fun
yeah,
one.
we always
Yeah.
have about a dozen clients there. Um, so, but I do think that, I mean, with Possible and Can, like, I do want to see the day when hero food ingredients are being celebrated and honored for their creative. Because honestly, we're doing best in class creative, things that have never been done before. Like, I'm not even kidding you. Like last week we had a 4-day shoot for our produce, one of our produce clients. And like we brought the client down. He's like, not one person in this industry is doing this. Like, not
Wow.
one person. And we're like, yep, here's the casting call. I mean, it was a 4-day video production. He's like, this is so awesome. Like, that was literally just like, this is the best. Like, this has never happened before. So I'm excited for it. That's where I think Nova West is going to make a name for ourselves, because I do want to showcase that work in a really, in a different way, because frankly, I just think the industry deserves it.
I love it. Do you submit for traditional awards?
Yeah, we do.
Nice.
We do.
I
We've
love
won a
that.
few. We've won a few, and that's something that we're going to really kind of put the gas on, because again, I mean, I don't know if even if I put myself in the shoes of like the judges, I'd be like, oh my God, this is different,
It would
right?
stand out for sure.
This is different. Like, I've never thought of, an artichoke like that, or I've never thought of cauliflower like that. But
I love that.
yeah, and that's, I think, part of our special sauce is that we just take a very, I mean, our creative department's incredible, and we really treat ag food like any other consumer product.
I love it. I love it. All right. We wouldn't be talking about farming in California or the nation if we didn't talk about cannabis. So
Okay.
where do you guys sit? Like, do you consider cannabis a crop? Do you guys think about that as part of your industry, part of your targets? Have you worked with cannabis companies? Would you work with cannabis companies?
Yes, 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 and yes.
Nice.
Yeah, for sure. We have pitched it. I mean, I have to be careful because I think I might come across a little as too soccer mom for a lot of the brands. Although
Sure.
arguably, I think I'm the target audience now. I think we can all agree.
Right.
But yeah, no, we have pitched. We haven't worked on a project. A few people on the team have. Something I definitely would be open with. But here's the deal: like the gravy train of cannabis, I think those days are gone. So I think that was definitely like 5 years ago, right before it was legalized. Those were definitely like kind of the gravy days. I just don't think there's as much money in the industry, if I'm being honest. Or I don't know if it's, and I would love your opinion on it. I also don't know if it's just sort of been just diluted.
I think so. I mean, look, the scale in which it is becoming consolidated, I think creates a race to the bottom like it does in any commodity. So with the regulations, it's harder to do anything in marketing. Really, the only channels that are available to you are endemic and outdoor sometimes and content marketing. So in one case, I think the limited channels does create the need for smart marketing to break through and to punch through. But I think you guys are actually in a really great position, because as more and more consolidation happens with bigger players, prices continue to fall down. There's going to be, yes, premium brands that have good name recognition, that when a consumer goes into a dispensary, they will know exactly what they're looking for. Like Dosis comes to mind, and maybe, some others, Charlotte's Web on the, hemp/CBD side. But then really, when you kind of get into like the mass market, then it's just a crop, then it's just a commodity. It doesn't really need the same level of consumer branding. put
Mhm.
into it. I think one of the biggest challenges right now, if you look at states like Maine or California, is that legalization has also emboldened organized crime. So
Mhm.
now organized crime is actually making more cannabis in Humboldt than they ever have,
Mhm.
because with legalization they are emboldened because they know there's not going to be as stiff of penalties if they get caught.
Mhm.
And they're also going to be um, able to like blend the product into the gray market, so to speak, and kind of like get it into legal channels in illegal ways. But I think that when the consumer starts to find out that these black market growers are importing toxic chemicals from China that aren't even on our Scheduled 1 substance lists, like they're using pesticides, formaldehydes, things that you would never want in your body,
Mhm.
and that the government doesn't even allow into the country, much less use it at industrial scale. So I
Mhm.
think that kind of like farm to table understanding where your cannabis came from and making sure that it doesn't
Mhm.
have these toxic ingredients that come from the black market will become
Mhm.
more important to the consumer
Mhm.
story once that becomes more widely known, I think.
Yeah, I mean, that's ingredient marketing.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
mean, that's something, I mean, that's what we're doing for a lot of our clients, how that ingredient was grown by whom. So,
How do you recruit? Are you recruiting people from the agricultural industry, or are you doing what you did? Are you bringing people from outside, or that were in like traditional agency roles and teaching them the ropes?
good question. We're definitely, I think our target is somebody who's incredible at their craft, basically. Um, Whatever their specialty is within advertising. Secondarily, they've got to be a little bit of a foodie. Like they
Hmm.
actually have to like think it's cool to talk about food, right? And
Yeah,
beverages and whatnot. So that sort of, I'd rather take somebody who's super food curious than somebody who was raised in this industry. Because the other thing is like we're like challenging status quo constantly. I've made a whole industry, I've made a whole career off of it. So that's where in an older industry like like agriculture, sort of like, you know, like, oh, there's just a lot of excuses. Like it's got to be this way, or it's never going to change, or this is just how it is, or whatnot. And that's just something at Noble West we're not okay with. We just absolutely do not think what got us here is going to get us there. So bringing in people who have like ask the crazy questions. Like I always say, like I want our team to I say this in quotation marks, sound a little dumb, like in discovery, because they're actually just asking the real question without assumptions that they already know the answer. And because we're trying to get to the truth of whatever that client's process is, or their ingredients are, or their farming, or however they need to differentiate. Like we want to tell that story differently. And we get feedback from our clients that are like, I only I only ever thought this was possible in my dreams, or I have absolutely in my entire life never seen an almond marketed like this or whatnot. And that's just because we're bringing in outside talent. It
yeah.
typically the kids, the FFA kids, and we have a couple of them, and I just adore them. And a woman that grew up on a dairy, and we've had our fair share, but it's definitely not as it is sometimes like breaking the mold a little bit.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, if you're disrupting a category,
Mhm.
you want to do that with, outside thinking. And
Absolutely.
essentially, I imagine a lot of these brands have in-house teams, and they wouldn't need you if you weren't bringing fresh perspectives and,
Yeah,
do kind of breaking molds, so to
for
speak.
sure, because we're not interested in being a vendor. Like, we're way
Hmm.
too expensive to do that. If you just want us to go execute all of your ideas and all of the things, like, we're just frankly too expensive and it's not interesting. And there are so many clients and brands and companies that come to us looking for transformation. I mean, a very normal new business intake for me is, hearing that like, yeah, we've just spent, $10 million on this investment, and we bought this company, and we bought our neighbor's processing plant, and now we think we want to do flour and or whatever. And it's like, okay, great. And then they're like, but how do we make money on it again? And I'm like, okay, so we already bought it. Okay. So now we're talking about business and product transformation. And that's where it's, I mean, our clients, I'm like, I don't think you're going to do it with this name. Like, you can't do it like with what grandpa called it 100 years ago. We need a new brand. You need to build out your portfolio. What if we had a portfolio because you have different targets for all these things? And that's when that's the bulk of our clients. And that is so fascinating because it is truly business transformation that can help them achieve what their goal is.
I love that. Is there an industry that you think the insights that you've learned since launching Noble West that you would be interested in potentially taking those learnings and applying it to another industry outside of ag? Like, what would be the industry that you think could learn the most from ag?
Well, fashion, but fashion arguably already does come from ag. So I don't want to make it seem like I don't understand how cotton is grown. I do understand how cotton is grown, but definitely fashion. And
I love that.
And it's happening in pockets, like tiny, tiny pockets it's happening in. But I absolutely would love to do more of this. There was a collab about probably 2 years ago with Veuve Clicquot and Stella McCartney, where Stella designed this bag that was used like that was used with tannins and different like grape seeds, and they cured it, and it was just this beautiful bag. And it was made like in the most sustainable way. I 1,000% want to work on that.
I love it. Well, that's the whole idea of like our food, fuel, and fiber, come from these farmers, right?
Exactly. So that's why I don't want, like, I already knew that fashion comes from it. Please don't put that out there.
No, I love that. And then, the idea, I think it's really interesting where a brand like Carhartt, who is maybe stuff that farmers used to wear out in the fields, is now like this, like, high fashion brand that kids are looking for $200 used Carhartt jackets in the thrift store because they're like so hot right now. Right. So like,
I love it.
I do too. I think it's great.
I love it. Yeah.
Amazing. Allie, this was fascinating. So excited to have an opportunity to chat with you. I love this space. Tell people where they can find out more about your agency or connect with you directly.
Thanks, Dylan. Probably wearenoblewest.com. And then I am very active on LinkedIn. So I think that's probably the best way.
It's the best follow for you.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Beautiful. Hey, if you are at home and you're watching this show for the first time, don't forget to give the Ad Podcast a follow or subscribe. If you're listening to the show, if you give us an honest review, that's how we find a larger audience organically. And last but not least, if there is a agricultural marketer or a farmer in your life, or maybe just somebody who you think just would learn a lot about my conversation with Allie today talking about agricultural marketing, please remember to share the show and have a great holiday season. Thanks so much, Allie. Appreciate it.